Welcome back to Stage Dive. Here we are at season 3. It's been a magical slate of interviews for this season. We have an intimacy coordinator. We have a singer who's blowing up on TikTok. We have dancers. We have photographers. We have st-up comedians. So many different kinds of performances. So many different kinds of humans. I loved making this season, and I hope you enjoy it. My conversation today is with Morgan St. Jean. She is a pop singer who is from and living in Los Angeles, California. And I so enjoyed our episode. Today, we talked more about some of the businessy aspects of performing that we don't always get to on this podcast, particularly because Morgan has had extraordinary success on both TikTok and Instagram with growing her following, creating opportunities to tour, getting her music streamed, doing the things that I think a lot of, I'll at least speak for myself as a musician, would like to be able to do. And what's so wonderful is that when she describes it, it's not as some harrowing grind. It's not as some soul-sucking exercise. It is the genuine building of community over time. And I think I'm so impressed by the way she's done it, and I'm so excited to see her continue to succeed. I love this conversation with Morgan. I hope you do too. Please enjoy it. Morgan, I'm so pleased that you're here. And to start, can you please tell me about this beautiful rose piece of clothing that you're wearing?
Oh,
tell me the story.
Yes. It's a jacket. It's like a black denim jacket, and then these are like 3D. I have had this jacket for so long, and every single time I wear it, I get compliments.
I understand why. It's striking. Was this like a thrift find? Was this like from a designer at some point?
No, this was some random. So I grew up in a small beach town in like LA, and this was like a random boutique in my hometown. And I've had it forever, and I just love it. And I'm so scared that someday I'm gonna have to stop wearing it because it's gonna be on its last legs. But for now, it still works.
Going strong. I love that. How far outside of LA were you? Or like, did you say you were from LA?
Yeah, so I'm from LA. It's part of, LA County or whatever, but it's sort of like a little suburb.
Right.
So, but I also say, I joke that I feel like I grew up all over LA just because I went to school kind of far from where I lived, and now I live in West Hollywood, which I love so much. Yeah, it's the best. But yeah, I mean, I love LA. LA is my home forever. It's weird,
Amazing.
But it's great.
Yeah. Expound on that if you would, for someone who hasn't spent a ton of time in LA. Like what do you love about it, and what is weird about it?
I mean, I think it's the sort of place where you don't realize it's a weird place to grow up until you meet people who are not from LA, you know?
Sure.
And I imagine any sort of big city, growing up in a big city is probably similar, but I just think I think it made me really tough because I grew up around people who were the best at what they did, like so good, so smart, so talented, whatever. And so it just sort of forced me to be comfortable with who I was, and learn to kind of fight if I wanted to compete with these people who were so great. Like, I had to hone my craft and practice and work really, really hard. I also think it creates this sort of sense of independence being from a big city, because you have to find your way around. And, I had friends who lived, LA is massive, so I had friends who lived all over. So you go, from Santa Monica to Silver Lake, it's like an hour away, and you have to just kind of learn to stand on your own 2 feet. And but I also, because I grew up in this kind of smaller beach town, I sort of feel like I did get a little bit of a small town vibe, but I didn't go to school there starting in like 7th grade. So most of my friends didn't live there, and I didn't do any activities there or anything. But LA is great. I am dying to move to New York City because that's my favorite city in the world. But I've also said that for years, so we'll see. We'll see if and when that happens.
There's time. Life is long, and you can certainly do music in New York. Yeah. That is not going to be a limiting option.
Totally.
I mean, obviously, LA has a huge presence of the arts. Was that sort of part of what inspired you to get into music, or like, where did your journey with art and music begin?
To be honest, if anything, I feel like being from LA, that would have deterred me from being a musician. I became a musician because it was just the love of my life. Like, it was this thing that I couldn't stop doing, and I just loved it so much. And I remember being a kid, and every other thing that I did, every other activity, I quit so that I could focus on singing. I was an ice skater, and my parents were like, if you're going to quit ice skating, you have to sit and talk to your coach and explain to her like why you don't want to do this anymore. And so I had a whole hour-long conversation with her at 8 or 9 years old, being like, I'm going to focus on singing. This is what I really want to do with my life. And, every sport that I ever played, everything that I did outside of music, I stopped doing so that I could do music. because it was just this deeply ingrained passion in my soul. But I think being from LA, when you're around people whose parents are in the industry, they know how hard it is. So when I was a kid growing up, anyone who was in the industry, whether they were an actor or, you know, in film or in music or whatever, they'd be like, for the love of God, if you can do anything else and be happy, go do that thing, because it's so hard, you know? And
Yeah.
I remember being a kid being like, what are they talking about? Like, I'm going to be the next Taylor Swift and it's going to be so easy. And I don't know what they're saying. And that was not the case. It is actually very hard. But
Hmm. Hmm.
yeah, I think the fact that I continued on this path and the fact that I'm still fighting for this dream, to me, is just an indication of how much I do love it, because I was sort of told every step of the way, don't do this if you can avoid
Yeah. Yeah. I I know that story.
it.
I know that pushback. Um, I'm really curious. Like, I think when we talk about like passion or purpose or calling or whatever it be, it's usually in the context of being an adult. And it's in the context of like, it gives me this extra boost of energy that allows me to go through the hard work to get where I need to go. Can you describe what it felt like to feel passion at like 8 and 9?
Wow, that is such, I've never been asked a question like that before. I remember being a kid, and I thought that the way that I felt about singing, I just loved it. I felt so at home on stage. I felt like it was this thing that I was really good at, and everyone was telling me I was good at it. And that was before all the, rejection and stuff. But like at the time, it was so much validation. But
Yes.
even before that, I remember being like 4 or 5 years old, and my godparents got me this karaoke machine, and I loved it. And I loved listening to music, and I would go to yard sales and garage sales with my friends and just buy every CD, all the Now, collections or whatever. And
I remember.
I just idolized Christina Aguilera. Then I idolized Hannah Montana, and I wanted to be like just like Hannah Montana, and Britney Spears and all these like girls who I was just like, they're so cool and they get to be on stage every day. And I remember when I was maybe 8 or 9, I said to my dad, when you were a kid, what was your passion? Because I thought that everyone had that feeling that I had about music. And my dad was like, I don't know. He was like, I don't think that's
Mm,
super normal. And so for me, it was hard for me to understand that most people didn't feel the way that I felt about music, about anything. So,
yes.
yeah.
That's so interesting. That's so, so interesting. And like, I think everyone in music has their influences, the people that they sort of grew up listening to, or the reasons they started singing, rapping, dancing,
Mhm.
whatever it is. Do you remember at what point you started to find your own voice and when you started to feel like you were carving out your own sort of sound and lane with what you were making?
That's interesting because so I grew up listening to a lot of country music, and my dad and I would like drive around. He would take me to like volleyball tournaments when I was a kid, or when he would drop me off at school or whatever, and we would listen to country music. And I really loved it because I was like, they just tell such interesting stories and visual stories in country music. I feel like lyrically.
Hmm.
And then I started to get a little older, and I was like, well, I'm from LA. I don't know if I can be a country star. And then I started to realize production wise, I really liked pop music more than I liked country music.
Hmm.
Even though I liked the lyricism of country music, I really loved the production of pop music. And I think it was probably, I mean, I don't even know that now I've found my sound necessarily, but I think probably in high, because it's always, changing and developing as I do as a human,
Totally.
But I would say probably in like high school, I started learning guitar, and I remember in high school I was maybe 14 years old. I started taking guitar lessons from this random dude who's like studio always smelled like weed all the time, and I was a kid so I didn't know
Perfect.
that that's what it was. But he was just this like funny dude, and he barely taught me guitar because the second I could play a few chords I was like, great, now I'm going to start writing songs. And I had already been writing songs, but now I could write on an instrument. Before I was just writing lyrics. And so I would go in and we would just spend the whole time that I was supposed to be learning guitar recording these songs. And that was kind of my first time ever being like, I'm going to write a song, write it to chords, put it, into a garage band or whatever he was using at the time, and have a version of this song that I can now show people. So I would say that was kind of my first foray into like really exploring production and soundscapes and things like that.
Yeah. And like, uh, do you feel like that was from like, again, sort of being in LA, being around it, knowing that that was a thing that you could potentially step into? Or was it more like inorganic coming from within? Like a lot of 14-year-olds would not have walked into guitar lessons and be like, oh, I have an idea. Let's record demos.
I
Like
know. Yeah.
not common. So like where did it come from?
To be honest, I don't really know. Like I said, I was right. My parents bought me a songwriting journal when I was like 8 or 9. And I was just always writing lyrics. I think to be honest, you know what I think it is? I have just a lot of feelings. I have the word feel tattooed on my
Mm,
body. I have big feelings, and I used to be really insecure about that, and I've come to a place where I'm really proud of that, and I think that's what makes me an artist, and I think that's what makes me human. But I feel like maybe as a kid it was just that I had these big feelings and I didn't really know what to do with them. So I thought I might as well write
mm,
about them, you know? And then I started learning a lot about Taylor Swift when I was young. I feel like she's the classic one that inspires so many young girls to become artists, and
mm.
all different types of people. But that's really why I wanted to start learning guitar, because I saw that she played guitar. And yeah, but the songwriting piece of it, honestly, I just think it was always in me. I think it was just this way to get out these big feelings that I had in my tiny little, 8-year-old body.
Yeah. Like what were some of the other ways that you would navigate having big emotions?
Gosh, that's a good question. It's interesting because I was actually talking to my mom about this recently, and we were talking about how, like, in my generation, everyone goes to therapy. Therapy, everyone talks about their therapist like they're their best friend that they had coffee with. It's just so normal. But for my parents'
Yes.
generation, that wasn't really the case. And so I think kids are being raised differently now than they were, when I was a kid or whatever. And my mom was saying, she was like, to be honest, she said she and my dad didn't necessarily know that they were supposed to talk about feelings with me, and they didn't really know how to deal with the whole feelings conversation, but I just had so many feelings that they were forced to kind of figure it out.
Mm,
And
yeah.
so I don't know, I think I was a big talker, always have been, probably always will be. um and so I think I would just talk a lot about them, and I think I would write about them. And yeah, I in general, I think as a kid I was really, really happy. So I don't know that they were necessarily bad feelings, but I was so insanely dramatic, which I still am. So, I'd be like 12 years old writing about some boy who, like, I didn't even know anything, just making up stories and imagining what things would feel like. I used to lie in bed and I had what I would call imagination time in my own head. This is what I would do. And I would just lie in bed before falling asleep, and I would picture like my life once I was a pop star. It was weirdly like a form of manifesting, I think, before I knew what that was. And I would,
Totally.
picture myself playing shows and being on the radio and being like Hannah Montana. And then I would also picture, what will it be like to fall in love, and like what will it be like to have my first kiss and things like that. So I think I just made shit up, to be honest.
Yeah. But like what's so funny is like those are amazing songwriting
Hmm.
songs. What does it feel like to fall in
Right.
love? You could write 10 songs of that
Yeah.
easily. Easily. That's so interesting. Like I think anyone who makes music inevitably indulges in the like, when I make it, and you see everything you see on TV. So you see the big stages, the entourage, yada yada yada. Now being deeper in it, touring, getting more recognition, like how has that definition of success changed? Like what do you see in your mind's eye when you think about either making it or finding success?
Oh, it's tough because I think this year in particular for me has been, to be completely honest, like quite a roller coaster. Like, I've hit a lot of
Mm,
milestones that I have worked for so many years, like going on tour and, meeting fans and having songs be really viral, and um just lots of different things. But I really struggle with always thinking about the future and not being great at being in the present, because I'm such a hustler,
mm,
and I'm just such an ambitious person, almost to a fault, where I struggle to recognize the moments of success. So it's funny because when people ask me about success or whatever, I'm like, I don't know. How would I don't know what that looks like. You know what I mean? And it's funny because
yeah.
I'll even compare myself to friends who have the same level of success as me, and I think of them as successful, but I don't think of myself really as successful.
Mm.
But I just made a video, to be honest, that was super vulnerable and potentially awkward and embarrassing on TikTok a few days ago, just like crying because I was like, I just put out an EP. It's this project that I truly have never been more proud of a project in my whole life. I worked so hard on it. It's
Mm.
songs that I think people need to hear. It's messages that I'm really proud to share. Um, and I've built this incredible community that I'm so proud of and so grateful for. But at the same time, I don't really feel like I've been able to get the industry, I call them the dudes in suits, sort of my coping mechanism, to get behind me. And I've done everything that I've been told to do. So I think, to me, I'm in the process of redefining what success does mean to me. And I think right
Mm.
now, what I'm trying to focus on is really just my relationship with my fans, because my God, they're fucking amazing. And they're so loving and encouraging and kind and thoughtful and smart. And that's really the only thing that I can control. You know what I mean? I can't control if someone at this place wants to put me on a playlist or someone at this place wants to put me on a tour or whatever. Um, I can control the DMs that I'm talking with my fans like every day, what the conversations that we're having, and making them feel loved and making them feel seen and valid, because that's how they make me feel. So that's really what I'm trying to
Mm.
focus on right now, is just like making music that I'm so proud of, that I can, in 20 years be like, I'm so proud that I put out that song. And also, just, yeah, maintaining this relationship with my fans that I think is so special.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I 100% want to go down the fans rabbit hole because I have both a lot of questions and I also think that's like such an overlooked topic of discussion in the context of music.
Sorry, I feel like my
Or
answers are a little all over the place today.
you're totally good. My brain goes
Okay.
all over the place. I got you. I can hold it. Um, so fans, pin, got it.
Yes.
You just put out an EP. What's it called?
It's called Skin and Bones.
Skin and Bones. Beautiful.
Yeah.
How many songs?
5.
Cool.
Yes.
So, my first question is like, is it your first EP or just your most recent?
No, this is my second EP.
Okay, beautiful.
Yeah.
So, before you did your first one, what convinced you or what inspired you to go from just making individual songs to actually putting together like a project?
I think, to be honest, it's sort of just where you get to us at a certain point. I was sort of in the world of chasing TikTok viralities. So
Mm.
anytime I had a TikTok go viral, I'd be like, okay, now I got to put out the song. And the songs would do really well, which I was so excited about. But at some point, as an artist, you need to kind of fill that hole of, what do I want to say? What is the message I want to spread? And I think my first EP was called Rich Man, and I still love that project. But the whole thing was based on, it doesn't matter how much money you make, it doesn't matter what gender you are, it doesn't matter, where you're from, what kind of car you drive. Being a rich man is a mindset and it's a mentality. And I think that was something that I really needed to hear in that moment. And so I was just writing all of these songs that fit that narrative. And so finally I was like, that should be a project, and that should be a
Mm.
body of work.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. And when you talk about TikTok, you mean you were putting out snippets, people would respond to it, and then you turn the snippet into a song?
Yeah, exactly. So
Yeah,
I would, put out a chorus or whatever. And then if it got 1 million views or 2 million views, I'd be like, I need to put this out right away, which is amazing because then there's already an audience ready to listen. But I
totally.
think now what I've really worked on, and again, going back to this idea of what is success to me, I want people to listen to my music because they know that I'm going to say something that's going to resonate with them, not because it's a snippet that they saw on TikTok, which is great. But I want them to really I want them to listen to my music because they feel like they know me and they feel like they know my story, and that maybe my story resonates with their story, you
Yes,
know?
totally. Well, and you mentioned like the country storytelling, and like country music, you can hate it or love it, but like it's deeply relatable.
Right.
It's hard to go through more than three or four country songs without being able to identify like love, heartbreak, relationship, striving, like some piece of the human experience that you can immediately be like, yeah, I wasn't herding cattle, but I totally know the feeling that they're referring to in that song.
Right,
It makes
exactly.
total sense. Amazing. So like, I love the way you describe it. Of there was this sort of like you found a pattern, and I think
Mhm.
so much of life is just finding patterns. And so you notice this pattern of like I don't want people to focus on how they identify. It's how they feel internally. And this feeling of wealth, this feeling of power is one that you give yourself, not necessarily that comes from these identities.
Right.
What was the sort of pattern or the upswelling for Skin and Bones?
So Skin and Bones is I mean there's lots of there's 5 songs on it and they kind of all have different vibes, I would say, but the title track and the music video was sort of my first time really ever exploring the concept of sexuality. And so the lyric of the song is, I don't love a body that's just skin and bones, that's not somebody. And the idea is sort of like, I don't know, I think I grew up in LA where people just are who they are, and there's no, at least in my experience, like I didn't experience any sort of shame or hatred around that. Like I went to a high school where tons of teachers were out, tons of students were out, it wasn't anything, so I just
Mm,
never really thought about it. And then and I've had experiences with men and women, and I just never really thought twice about it. And so I never felt the need to really talk about it publicly. And then I started to realize that just because I had that experience doesn't mean that everyone has had that experience. And I think it's really important to talk about that and make it acceptable. And part of that is just talking about it publicly. And so it was really this song that I didn't really, when I went to the session that day, I knew it was a song that I wanted to write, but I don't think I really realized, to be honest, I don't really think I realized it was about me until later. It was just about love, and it was
super
just about
interesting.
letting people love who they love. And then I
Yeah.
got home and I was like, well, wait, that's how I feel about love. That's how I feel about loving people. I don't love somebody based on their gender. I love somebody based on who they are internally.
Yes.
So, and then the
Yeah.
music video I'm really proud of as well. It starts off with me in this like big ball gown and all made up, red lips and gloves and jewelry and all these things, and slowly throughout the video I take all of those things off. And then I'm it's also showcasing a bunch of people like my brother and his girlfriend and one of my managers and her girlfriend, and it's kind of showcasing all different types of love. But then at the end we're all just humans wearing t-shirts and jeans. And
Mm,
so it's sort of about, because it's, the song is my story, but at the same time, it's not just about sexuality. It's about loving people of different races, loving people of different, economic classes, loving people of different religions, it's just about like loving people for who they are, not the boxes that
mhm.
they fit.
Yes. Yes.
So,
I mean, 100%. And I think going back to what you were saying earlier, like, I think the beautiful thing about storytelling, and I think this is something I wish more people knew, it's like, it's not about people having lived the same experience as you. It's them seeing the emotional reality that they have also experienced in your narrative.
right.
And so, to an extent, like, even if someone has never been curious about exploring a relationship outside of what we would consider quote unquote traditional, that doesn't mean they can't identify with the experience of wanting something that other people consider taboo or consider not enough or whatever it is.
Totally.
And like, I think that's when songs become so powerful.
Yeah. And even, I think as a baseline, like I was thinking about this recently because my song Not All Men is a song that it was my first song ever to go viral on TikTok, and it was really powerful for me. It sort of started this little movement of women, talking about their experiences as women, whether it's being catcalled on the street or being assaulted by a boss, and everything in between.
Mm,
And of course, not only women can relate to that, but that was sort of who I was speaking to in that song. And I remember with Skin and Bones, I said, I feel like this has the same level of just honesty and like raw vulnerability as Not All Men, but at the same time, it's almost more universal because everyone knows what it's like to just love people. You know what I mean? Like everyone knows what it's like to love, or maybe their dog, or maybe their sister, and I think
totally.
for me, it was just my way of saying, what the fuck is the point of judging love ever? You know what I
Mm,
mean? If like love is just only positive to me. And so
yes.
to have people hate on love, to me, just it's so crazy. So that was really the point of
Yeah.
the song.
Yeah. I mean, that's beautiful. I'm curious, like, have you gotten any negative response to it?
I mean, maybe a couple comments here and there, but to be honest, not really. It's been almost all supportive, and I think that's just a testament to my community, and the people that follow me are just loving, accepting people. And you're always
Totally.
going to get a troll, whatever. I don't really worry about it too much, but fortunately I've
Yeah.
been just received with so much love and support, and yeah.
Yeah. What was it like, and I'm projecting a little bit here, but what was it like to go from like no one's really hearing my stuff, I'm posting snippets, things are happening, and then like something goes viral and all of a sudden like it feels like the world is paying attention. Like for you as an artist internally, like what is that experience like?
I mean, it's the thing that I worked so hard for. So I'm so grateful because all I've ever wanted is to make music that people hear and that people resonate with.
Mm,
For me, I'm so wildly grateful for social media, which is how I've found any amount of audience because I think again, like I just think my fans are the coolest people ever and they hold me accountable as a songwriter. They're not going to blow up a song
mm,
that's a trash song. They're not going to let me be a lazy songwriter and then be like this is great. You know, they love the songs that are truly I think my best songs as a writer, as an artist, the songs that hold the most meaning to me. And I love, you know, a fun pop song, you know, that you can just bop to for sure. There's
yeah.
nothing wrong with that, but I think the community that I've built because of the way that it kind of developed. You know, it started with this song that's about sexual assault. That's a heavy topic. Anyone who's going to follow my journey based on that song is a smart person who wants to hear music that really means something. So it's forced me to
Mm,
really challenge myself as a songwriter to write stuff that has meaning. And, you know, I don't want to necessarily like write political songs for the rest of my life or only write political songs or whatever. But at the same time, what a blessing to have a platform where people pay attention and I can talk about those things.
yeah. 100%. Did you ever feel any hesitation or nervousness about writing about a topic that could be considered more hot button?
Um, Not really. I think, like, I mean, I hold my opinions so strongly and I just believe these things so strongly. And the more I release this type of music, the more I see that people need to hear it and people want to hear it and they want to have that voice shared and connect, you know, over that. I think if anything, it's nerve-wracking because of the people in my own life. You know what I mean? There's some when someone knows you more
Mm,
intimately, it's a little scarier to be like, this is what I think, and I'm so sure about it that I'm going to release a song to the world about it, and you and I can have a conversation about it because we know each. I'm not really talking to some random person who's going to judge me and from wherever, so I don't really hear their opinions of me unless they're commenting on my videos, in which case I probably just delete the comments. But if it's like coming from like the people in my own life, that's a little more intimidating
yeah,
because they can respond and I have to listen to it, you know? But fortunately, I'm surrounded by amazing people. So that's good.
that helps a lot.
Thank you all so much for participating. I appreciate it so much. My name is Jack Dawkins. Thank you again. Have a beautiful, beautiful evening. That's my say.
There you go, hit me up, man. Let's make some music. You're fine.
Appreciate you.
I like your message.
Thank you. What's up?
That's solid, my guy.
I appreciate you.
Yeah, I was gonna ask, like, so in high school you were making demos. It was clear that music was the
Hmm.
thing, but like I'm making this up on the spot, but like I sort of think when you're doing something in high school, it's still in the realm of like side,
Hobby.
right? And then
Hmm.
at some point you have to be like, yeah, exactly. And now at some point it becomes like, no, I'm doing this. Like if you go back to that moment, that decision, from everything you said, it doesn't sound like it was a particularly hard decision to make. But do you remember like what am I trying to ask? Like what was that like for friends and family who did not have a passion, who did not know exactly what they wanted to do and were in love with it? What was that sort of like?
I think my parents, they are not in the entertainment industry at all whatsoever. And so they were very much like you go to school and you get good grades and we love you and we think you're so talented and we love that you love music, but like you always need a backup plan and you need a safety net and things like that. Now they're just like go all in on this. And to be honest,
Yeah.
I feel so lucky because I honestly think the people in my life are the ones who keep me going when I'm starting to question music and my relationship with music, you know, my parents, my
Mm,
best friends, you know, my producer, those people, they don't let me quit. When I'm being, you know, dramatic and I'm like, I hate music and I'm going to quit. It's like, to me, it's like considering divorce. That's what I would imagine it would be like to
mm,
consider divorce is the idea of me quitting music. And the people in my life are the ones who are like, no, you're not. No, you're not doing that. Like one of my best friend said to me one time when I was really frustrated with music, she was like, I don't know who you are if you're not a musician. That's literally who you are. And I've known her since I was 8 years old. So I think I'm really lucky that I have a support system who knows that it's everything to me. And I think, regret it for the rest of my life if I didn't give my whole self to it.
Yeah. Yeah. How have you developed ways or strategies of giving yourself more grace?
Oh, working on that. I think something that I'm really trying to learn is to focus on the things that I can control and let go of the things that I can't, because I'm a bit of a
Yes.
control freak. And that is not helpful when they're just things that you can't control.
Yes.
So I'm definitely
Yes.
working on that. And actually, a friend of mine read my tarot. God, I'm sounding so LA right now, but my friend read my tarot last fall, and she said something that was so profound to me. She was like, Morgan, you have to take care of yourself in order to continue being a musician. That's part of your job, is to keep your mental clarity and your mental health strong so that you can continue to write songs and continue to be struck by inspiration whenever it comes to you. And so I used to feel really guilty. Like if I was not sitting at my piano or sitting at my desk or sitting filming videos, feeling like I'm a lazy piece of shit and I need to work harder. And realizing that like going for a hike and listening to a podcast that inspires me is part of my job. You know what I mean? Like to having
Yes.
dinner with my friends who empower me and make me feel confident is part of my job. And all of these
Yes.
things that maybe someone who works a desk job or something that is a normal like 9 to 5, they think of as off time. It is off time, but it's also so important for me to be able to maintain this life and this lifestyle and all, these weird shit that I'm dealing with every day mentally. Um,
Yeah.
so that's a way that I've given myself grace, is to not judge myself for those moments and use them as fuel and inspiration.
Yeah. 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 I don't know to what extent this is universal, but I think they're like creative work and work are decidedly
Mm-hmm.
different. And like the way I would describe it is like if I'm uploading songs to my DSP and I need to like put in the lyrics, it's like it's dumb grunt work, right? Like I can do that with a drink in front
Mm-hmm.
of the TV and I can not be particularly present and just move through it. If I want to like write a song or come up with lyrics or a melody, like that requires
Right.
nourishment. And like nourishment is not just like kicking your feet up or watching a movie. Nourishment again is like it's fresh air, it's exercise, whatever your meditation
Right.
practice is. And like everyone's version is different and that's beautiful. But like if your cup is leaking aggressively and you don't have a way to refill it, like yeah, the ability to create is, god, it's so limited, which is then even more frustrating because you're like, but I'm here and I'm supposed to do it now. It's like, yeah, but I
Right.
can't.
Exactly.
Like there's nothing in the well to
Right.
tap. It doesn't
I
work.
think part of the job of a creative is continuing to be able to be a creative, you know?
Yes. Yes. 100%. Um, I am curious. Like I see you and acknowledging like I like to control things and I like things to be just a certain way. Like, ooh, social media does not afford you a lot of control, and yet like social media has also been very good to you. So like, how do you navigate that duality?
I joke that social media is like a toxic relationship, because it's like it gives you just enough love that you want to stick around, and then it just like tells you you're ugly and hates you, and then you're like, wait, and then it's like, I'm sorry. It's horrible.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
But again, it's the best because it's the only reason I have any sort of platform and any sort of audience. Um, I mean, I'm not gonna lie. There was a period of time where I was blocked. I was growing, growing, growing on TikTok. I mean, new followers every single day. Everything was going super well. I was posting 4 times a day, like so committed to it, just absolutely in it. And then I got shadow banned for 3 months. I was getting like a few hundred views, which I was used to getting like 6-figure
Right.
views. And I was so depressed. Like, truly, it sounds insane that TikTok could put me into a depression. But I was like, this is make or break for music. And we were reaching out to TikTok people and they were like, no, we're not seeing any blocks on her account. We're not seeing any blocks on her account. Sure enough, there were blocks on my account. It got resolved, but there was like a period of time where I was like, what am I doing? Like, truly, what am I doing? Um, I think, I don't know if I've found the cure to not let my mental health be so impacted by social media. I definitely hope to get to a place where I don't need to rely on social media as the end all be all, but I'm not really there yet,
Sure.
to be honest. So I'm working towards that. And for now, I just try to view it as it always comes back around. You know what I mean? Every time I'm like, I'm never going to have a viral song again. Then I have another viral song. So as long as I continue creating and putting out stuff that I'm proud of, eventually I think it catches up, you know?
Yeah. I so agree with that. And then like, I know that virality is, it's weird, right? Because like some of it is intangible. Some of it is like the way you structure your video, et cetera, et cetera. From your experience, like how much of it is the song and how much of it is like making 4 videos a day for however long you have, figuring out lighting, pacing, framing, changing camera angle, like
Yeah.
all the little tips and tricks you can read about.
Yeah, I spend so much time watching like YouTube videos and stuff to learn about that stuff. I think from my experience, and I'm sure everyone's experience is different with this,
Totally.
but you know, I have friends who are super, super viral because they sing covers all the time. I sing a cover and no one watches it. So I think it really is like dependent.
Yes.
I think for me, my viralities are caused by my songs, like the lyrics and the meaning of the songs. And it's almost always I could tell you if I think a song could go viral. It's the ones that have the most meaning to me. It's something that's topical and relevant. You know, my song Energy, which is probably my most viral song yet, was a song that I wrote a year and a half ago. I was doing this thing called Songs Miss, which I released a clip of a new song every day for 25 days during December. And that was a song that I wrote for that, a little chorus that I had written. Didn't do anything when I first posted it. Then I saw that hashtag Lucky Girl Syndrome was trending, like in the new year, at the start of 2023. And I was like, maybe I'll just repost that clip, see how it does. Post that clip, it gets 1 million views, the song blows up, I release the song. But it was because I was paying attention to what was happening kind of in the landscape of social media and pop culture and whatever. I think my songs are what caused me to go viral. And then I think some of the more strategic social media, you know, YouTube lessons that you can learn are what keep my song going viral, if that makes sense.
Yes. Yes.
So when I was posting 4 times a day, it was because my song Do It Like a Girl, which I think went viral because it was a great song, was kind of trending. So I was just gonna I'm gonna post this every day, 4 times a day, using all the tools that I know until people get sick of it. And that's what kind of kept it going viral.
Got it.
Mm-hmm.
That's so interesting. Yeah, the world of TikTok and virality is so fascinating to me, and
It's so wild.
have not at all figured it out the way that you have. I admire everything that you've done. It's very, very
I don't
impressive.
know if I figured it out, so
You're certainly doing something right. You're seeing something happen, which is amazing. I mean, like the song "Skin and Bones" feels like it sort of is aligning with Pride and a lot of the narratives around it, and like it's doing great. I don't know how much that was intentional or not, but it's working.
Yeah, well, that's one of those songs that I was like, this feels like a song that should go viral. If I can just find the right video at the right time, it feels like it should go viral.
Yes.
And what's crazy about it is like I posted the first video about it's a song that I wrote a while ago, but by the time I got the whole project together and everything, it was like, okay, wait, I could put this out during Pride. That would actually be really cool. And my project will be done. And, you know, it kind of all the stars aligned on that front.
Yeah.
But I thought the first video that I posted with it would do really well because that was my first video being like, hey, I know I like guys, but also I like girls. And also maybe I just like people regardless of their gender. And it was fucking scary to post that. And I was like, that's going to blow up. Like, duh, obviously that's going to blow up. And it like didn't really, you know? And then and then I posted a video of me playing the song for my dad for the first time. And like we both started crying and I was like, that's going to blow up. Didn't really. So you just never know. But then I posted another one recently where it was just like me reacting to all of these like amazing LGBTQ proposals and like wedding videos. And that has like almost 1 million views on Instagram. So you just never know. But I think if you believe in a song, you just have to keep posting it and keep trying, you know, because you know when a song is worthy of people's attention and when it's not your best, you know,
for sure,
you know, so I said, you know, like 17 times, but
I hear you. Um, like what? Well, anyway, we can move on. I could quiz you on TikTok for hours because I have my own curiosities, and like I won't do
I
that to
totally
you.
understand.
That would be
You can
unkind.
DM me whenever and I'll answer your questions.
Appreciate you. Let's talk about your fans. And this first question, I don't know you're gonna like it, but it's okay. Like I think you described them as like smart and caring and loving and attentive and wonderful. Can you accept that like your fan base is ultimately a reflection of you?
I have never thought of that, but I love that idea. I mean, that makes me very proud. If that's the case, then I must be doing something right because they're awesome.
Feel free to
I
marinate in
like
that
that
one.
idea.
Yeah, it's
Thank you.
true.
I like that idea.
Of course. And so you start going viral, you're getting all these interactions. Like, what does your relationship to your fans look like?
I mean, it's the sort of thing where people think that maybe it's not me in my DMs every day because I'm in my DMs every single day and like no one has my password to my socials
Yeah,
besides me.
yeah.
And it's just us talking about life. It's them telling me about what's going on in their life. And then when I post a video of, like I did the other day, of me feeling really sad and frustrated, them sending me encouragement and us kind of bonding over these life experiences that just make us so human, you
Mm,
know? And it's like what you said earlier, it might not be the exact same experience, but we've all had the same sort of feelings. And so we just relate on those levels. And they give me good ideas and they give me inspiration and they just motivate me. But we just honestly chat online all the time. And then going on tour was really cool because that was the first time that I got to like see their faces and meet them in
mm,
person.
yeah,
And that was just the most special time of my life. Getting to meet them and hug them and just like people were crying and I was like, this is so crazy.
yeah, yeah. What was that tour?
So I opened for this incredible artist named Cloudy June,
Yeah,
and she is German, and she's just amazing. And we've become really good friends, and I just will sing her praises forever. But so it was so crazy because back in the might have been like the winter time, uh, she followed me on Instagram and I had seen her name, on Spotify, my related artists, things like that. I kind of knew who she was just through the grapevine. Saw that she followed me on Instagram, so I followed her back and I DM'd her and I was like, hey, I love your music. And she was like, I love your music. And then I saw that she had just announced a Europe tour and I was like, if you ever want an opener, I would love to be considered. And she was like, that would be perfect. And so our managers, turns out my manager is German. And so he knew her they were friends. So it worked out really perfectly.
amazing.
And I got to go all over Europe. I got to see a bunch of places I had never been to before. I got to meet so many people and, sign t-shirts and people were getting my lyrics tattooed on their bodies. It was just the coolest.
Amazing,
Yeah.
amazing. Um, Gosh, that's wonder. How time wise, how long were you on that tour?
I was gone for about a month.
Yeah,
And I had a little break before the very last show. So I got to, kind of just explore Europe a little bit and have
yeah,
like a sort of vacation type thing, which was really
yeah,
nice.
yeah.
And the most fun part was my parents actually came with me for the first half
Oh,
because,
cool.
balling on a budget, I was like, I can't really afford to bring merch people and a tour manager and this and that and all these people. So, and my parents are like retired. So they were like,
We'll
we'll go to
come.
Europe with you. And to be honest, I kind of thought they wouldn't enjoy it because you're driving in a van for 5 hours a day and you're sleeping in random places and you're in a city for 12 hours and then you're in a new city and you don't remember where you are. And I thought they were going to be exhausted and hate it. And they had the time of their life. It was so cute. My
That's
dad
awesome.
took his merch selling job so seriously. It was adorable.
Oh, that's so awesome. I mean, that sounds like a major highlight. What else did you love about tour, and where did you struggle on tour?
I loved pretty much everything about tour, to be honest. I loved meeting people. I loved the feeling of kind of nervous, anxious, excited energy every single night before I went on. I kept thinking it was going to go away and it just didn't. I loved,
Mm,
talking to the fans after because I would always go to the merch booth and sign things and help sell things. And I loved getting to see Europe. I loved getting to try new foods. To be honest, I loved being in the van because you're just driving. So you get to see all these, countrysides and I mean, lots of freeways and gas stations, but also kind of cool places that you wouldn't otherwise see if you were just visiting the big cities. So it was just the coolest. I guess the only downside I can think of is that I'm a really bad sleeper. I have really bad insomnia.
Mm,
So the jet lag was kind of hard, but I mean, I'll take that any day.
for sure. That's super navigable.
Yeah.
Um, So I mean, like, you're in this really cool place. Like, you just put out an EP. You went on a European tour with this artist you really like. Like, socials are growing. Like, what do you? Well, it's funny. You told me specifically that you have trouble staying in the present and you focus too much on the future. So maybe I shouldn't ask this question. But like, if you got to take a paintbrush and sort of lay out what the next 6 months, year, 2 years starts to look like, what are you excited to do?
I definitely want to tour more. I got hooked on this last one.
Yeah.
And I just know that there's so many people in so many other places that it would be so great to get to meet. So touring is definitely at the top of my list. And, for me, I think it's just I make music because I feel like it's what I was put on this earth to do. And
Mm,
the way that I get to connect with people through this music, it's indescribable for me. And so my goal is to just connect with as many people as humanly possible, to hopefully help as many people as humanly possible, and get to make music and perform it for the rest of my life. So, hopefully I'll be a big pop star, and then that way I can do that all the time.
cheers to that. That sounds great. Um, that being said, in terms of helping other people,
Yes.
like, you can answer this one of two ways, or you can answer both. If you could go back and talk to yourself at 8 years old, is
Mm.
there anything you would tell a younger version of yourself? Or if someone was just thinking about getting into music and getting ready to take the scary plunge, what advice would you offer to that person?
Um, I would say, well, I would give two pieces of advice. One is a little more practical. The first is also the piece of advice I would give my 8-year-old self, which is I always tell people this. I think one of the biggest realizations you can have as a human and as an artist is that you are inherently enough. You don't have to be,
Mm,
somebody you're not to be interesting enough. You don't have to be crazier or I don't know, like I think it's so easy to look at social media and look at all these other artists and be like, well, they do this thing so well or they do this thing so well. And I've played the comparison game for so long and it just gets me nowhere. And I
mm,
found that I started having success when I realized that just me, Morgan, is interesting enough. That's a cool enough story. That is an
mm,
interesting enough message that I don't have to go be some crazy, rock and roll, sex, drugs, rock and roll, whatever thing that I'm not in order to be successful. And if anything, that will probably prevent me from being successful because people crave authenticity. So if you can just be yourself and realize that that's interesting enough and that's a story worth telling, I think that'll save a lot of frustration and comparison. And then the more tactical piece of advice that I would give is just start. I think it's
mm.
so easy to come up with reasons as to why not yet. I'm not ready yet. I'm not good enough yet. I don't know enough yet. I need to research more. I need to practice more. I need to do this or that. You can always post something and then take it down, and you could also, I think there's a lot of power in realizing that your early stuff probably won't be good. And that's fine. It's good just by the fact that you sat down and did it, you know?
Yes. Yeah.
So you are a songwriter if you write a song. Doesn't have to be good. You're a songwriter, you know?
Yes.
So I would say
Yes.
just start.
Yeah. You could almost make the argument like it is impossible to write a good song before writing 20 bad ones, so you might as well get them out of the fucking way.
That's the thing.
Like,
Every artist that you admire, every songwriter that you admire, Taylor Swift has written bad songs. We've probably just never heard them. You know what I mean?
yeah.
So
Oh,
it's like
100%.
there's no way that she has written 900 songs and every single one of them is amazing. And Ed
Yes.
Sheeran's the same way, and Beyonce, and anyone that you look up to, they went through a lot of bad stuff to find the gems.
Yes. 100%. 100%. And I have one more question for you,
Yeah.
which is like, if you think about where you are now, and then you look ahead to 10 years, and let's say you go full Taylor Swift. You also break Ticketmaster, you're doing the stadium tour, like life is cotton candy and balloons. What do you hope or aspire to remember about this moment, about where you are right now, that you want to take forward with you as you keep going?
Wow. You have asked some of the best questions I've ever been asked. What do I want to remember about this moment right now? You know what I want to remember is that I was always the girl who kept going. Because there have been so many moments, especially recently and just in general in my career, of being like, maybe this isn't for me. Maybe, the universe gave me this passion and it's not because I'm meant to do it forever. It was meant to be for now. I don't know. But I always keep going. And it's the one thing that I can take so much confidence from is like, I get to decide when it's game over. And as long as it's not game over, there's still more to do.
Yes. Oh, that's beautiful. Thank you for sharing. Okay. Skin and Bones is the EP. Where can people find you? Where should they look for you?
Everywhere. Morgan St. Jean. If you search Morgan St. Jean, I'll probably pop up. On TikTok, I think I'm Morgan St. Jean Music. Instagram, Morgan St. Jean. Search Skin and Bones, Morgan St. Jean, everywhere you listen. And there's a music video that I'm really proud of, so definitely check that out.
Amazing. Morgan, thank you so much for spending your time
with
me today. I really appreciate it. And I can't wait to dive deeper into your TikTok and your music and your catalog and videos and all of it.
Thank you. You seriously asked such thoughtful questions, so I'm grateful.
Thank you very, very much. I appreciate it.
Awesome. Well, I'll talk to you soon.
Do you know anyone who you think would make a great guest on this podcast? The good news is there's almost no qualification. They need to be a human and they need to make art. I'm not particularly concerned if they make art for 100,000 people or for no people and they're still doing it in their home. This podcast is all about telling the stories of artists and how their craft has evolved over time, how they perform in their own unique way. So if you have a friend that you love listening to, if you have someone who you think has a really interesting story, I would so love to talk to them. Please don't hesitate to reach out. You can email us at stagedivepodcast@gmail.com. Thank you for watching Stage Dive again. My name is Jack Dawkins. It was a pleasure to have you here. Before I sign off, I do want to thank Kalisa Mickle and Holly Johnson for being the hearts, the guts, the brains behind the operations that make this entire podcast possible. They work so hard to continue to improve it and put it in front of more people and allow it to continue to live on. So thank you to them, thank you to our guest, and thank you to you for watching. I appreciate you.